our webinar so that we will have this recorded. So I'm going to give the time over to Jenna.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm glad you'll be moderating the chat because I will have the teacher view of Nearpod going. I'm also logged in as a student. And so I think the chat would have been a bit much on top of that. But again, so we're going to spend the next little bit talking about not only using Nearpod in the physical classroom, but it's also going to be peppered with the new updates to Nearpod that have recently come in February, and some of those really neat updates from 2021, the 2021 calendar year that you might have missed. So at this time, we have a Nearpod to join, of course. Go ahead and go to join.nearpod.com. The code BYNIK. Boy, you never instantly know. BYNIK. So again, as people are joining us, I have the join code for the Nearpod. I was going to say up on the board. I just reverted back to my teaching days. Up on the screen. BYNIK. Perfect. And if you're set up in such a way, I know we all wear many hats and are very busy, especially right after the school day. So if you need to, you can simply watch my screen. I will be showing it at all times. Okay. All right. We've got a couple people. So again, my name is Jenna Townsend. I am the Customer Success Manager for all Nearpod and Vocabulary accounts in the state of Utah. And prior to November, this most recent November, I spent the last 11 years as an educator and an ed tech specialist in the state of Utah. So Utah public education is near and dear to my heart. And that's why I say embarrassing things like the join code is up on the board, because until recently, I was working in person at a school district. You can follow me on Twitter at NearpodJenna, or if you ever have any questions that come up or need assistance, want to know about new updates, you can always email me, jenna.townsend@nearpod.com. For those of us who have joined, a quick little poll. I'm interested to know when you started implementing Nearpod with students, or if you are in a coaching role, when you really started implementing Nearpod in your PD and in your coaching sessions. Pre-pandemic, you're an original. During school closures to support remote instruction, you started using Nearpod to support more of a hybrid schedule when we had our, roomies and our Zoomies. And then maybe you didn't start until we got in person, or maybe you haven't started yet, and this is the inspiration you need. Perfect. I'm going to take a sneak peek because I am projecting my screen. Excellent. It looks like we mostly have either OGs, Nearpod users who started using pre-pandemic, or people who adopted Nearpod to support school closures during remote instruction. Now, the reason I ask is because we all know how the last year and a half, actually 2 years now, has gone. And we know that for those of us who have been using Nearpod for a while, or original users, Nearpod kind of originated as a tool for in-person instruction, but it worked really well to support that remote instruction when we had our school closures in spring of 2020. So we're going to kind of talk about shifting back to the physical classroom, whether you were a teacher or in a coaching role. I've heard a lot when we got back to the classroom, it was, okay, now I can go back to the way I used to do things. But there's so much about Nearpod that can leverage your instruction in person that we're going to talk about some of those tips and tricks today. Okay, and the second thing we're going to go ahead and do is a drag and drop. Now I'm quickly going to demonstrate the expectations for you as though I were a teacher with students in front of the class. So here you can see on the new teacher dashboard, I actually default to student view. This is new as of February. So if you are projecting your screen at the front of the room, you don't have to worry about running up to the front of the room because all of a sudden you have student names and student answers up on your screen. It defaults to student view so that you can model expectations for students, and we'll also talk about some other uses as well. You might notice in the past that switching between student view and teacher view would take a while. It is now instantaneous, which is really nice. No more long, awkward load time. So if you'll go ahead and fill in this drag and drop just for some fun little practice, what did your classroom look like spring of 2020, fall of 2020, and the present? You'll see here we've got a student on the computer. Next, we have a teacher with some students physically in front of him and virtually behind him. And then a teacher who is all in person. Excellent, taking a look. So it looks like some of us, we have a mixture. I love how you used some of those drag and drop items more than once, but we definitely have a lot of hybrid. We started in the spring, continued into the fall. I was going to say someone kind of went opposite of what everyone else did, but is now fixing. Perfect. So the whole reason I did this activity was I wanted to show you that now as students are completing drag and drop activities, you can see their work in progress. Prior to this, with the activity Draw It, which is very similar on the teacher dashboard, you could only see student answers when they submitted, but you can now see students as they're working and once they submit their Draw It or their drag and drop activity. Perfect. If you haven't submitted yet, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and kick you on to the next slide. So many of us, this is kind of what I was seeing, not necessarily with all of you. Again, spring of 2020, we had those school closures. We were trying to keep our head above water and stay remote. That's where a lot of us adopted Nearpod. In the fall, it was a great tool to support our roomies and our Zoomies if we found ourselves in a hybrid schedule. And then today we are back in person. We have been for a while in Utah. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what Nearpod looks like and how it can be leveraged in the physical classroom, particularly for the different stages of the gradual release of responsibility. So we're focusing on that I do, we do, y'all do, and you do. And again, if you're joining us late, the join code is always at the top here, BYNIK. So go ahead and take a moment to answer on this collaborate board. What are some of your favorite strategies for the different stages? You can just post to one column. You'll notice we have 4 columns, which is a new feature to the collaborate board. I have a column for I do, a column for we do, one for you all do, and one for you do. When you post your answer, when you write your answer down at the bottom, you'll use the drop-down menu to decide which column you would like your answer to post to. So what is a favorite strategy? You can choose one of the columns and just contribute one strategy. Oh, perfect. And I probably could have offered more clarification. I was asking in terms of Nearpod or not using Nearpod, but I see we went both ways. When we do in the classroom, we love using whiteboards. Keep that in mind when I talk about whiteboards in a minute. I do projecting on the board, you do time to climb. So I did just want to show you how now in Nearpod you can create columns and your students can post to particular columns. In this case, you got to choose which column. I've also seen professional development sessions or even class sessions where the teacher has created a column for last names, A through D. And then last names E through such and such, and the students were required to post according to the first letter of their last name. And you can scroll within each column. In addition, you'll notice as well now, I am showing your names, but when a student sees this, you'll notice that the student names are starred out. In the past, as a teacher, I used to beg and plead with my students. I would say, please, please, please put your name as the title of your post so that I can tell you contributed without needing to look at the post-session report. Now, the collaboration board automatically includes the name the student logged in with from the teacher view, and it defaults to blocking out the student names in the student view. You can, of course, change that. You can also now, as a student, comment to another student's post. So you are all students. Can I have one guinea pig? Just go ahead and comment to somebody else's post. It can be a smiley face. I just want to go ahead and show you what that looks like for both the student and the teacher. Excellent. I'll show you on teacher view here. So here we can see that we have the student responses. Again, in student view, you're not going to see those names there, but I can as a teacher. And if this makes you a little bit nervous, there is this new student options button up at the top. As a teacher, I can choose whether or not students see each other's names. I can allow students to edit their responses or not. If you're maybe in a student paced mode and you've enabled a collaborate board and you say something like, please post to the collaborate board and then respond to 2 peers, but you must post first. Maybe you don't want them to post gibberish and then go back and change it later after they figure out their answer. You can make sure that they cannot edit their responses. And you can also, as you're probably used to, you can make sure that you approve student posts before they show up in the student view. You can also approve student comments before they show up on the student view. So a lot of fun features there with our new collaborate board. We can also sort oldest to newest, most likes, or by last name. Most likes could be a fun way if you're trying to get a consensus among students. And when you are setting up a collaborate board, you also have the option to have your mouse die when you're presenting. No, that's not it. There we go. You also have the option to have students post pictures and videos. They can also, so they can record themselves and post that. They can audio record themselves and they can also post GIFs. So these options down here provide more opportunities for students to demonstrate their thinking. It also can support our ML students, our students who are learning English as an additional language, because they don't necessarily need to respond in text, in writing. All right, thank you for being my guinea pigs. I think my mouse still thinks it's April Fool's and it's going to give me some trouble today while I'm presenting. So we're going to talk about the first stage in the model of gradual release of responsibility, and that is the I do stage. And when I think of remote learning in Nearpod, I often think of something like this, right? You've got your slide, you are presenting content to students in that direct instruction approach. And so we need to shift our thinking from this isn't happening on the computer now, this is happening in person. And there's 2 ways you can choose to do this. The first way, of course, is the traditional Nearpod way, which is student devices are on, teacher projector is off. Students are seeing what you're doing on their computer screens. Or Nearpod is now embracing the idea of teachers projecting on the board at the front of the room to help with more, to help get students' noses out of their devices so that we have more of a traditional classroom feel, but we're still leveraging instruction with educational technology. So speaking of I do, my first recommendation for this stage of instruction is to get your students using student notes. This is not a new feature, but it is one that is often forgotten. So on these tiny pictures, and as students in your student view, you can see you have this pencil and paper icon up towards the top right. And when you open it, students will have the option to save their notes to Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, or send via email. In my case, I'm using Google. And now I can take notes on each slide while the teacher is delivering that direct instruction. So that's one way to keep them more actively engaged when you are delivering content. Next, this is a new feature from the 2021 calendar year. As you are presenting those slides, there's no need for them to be static, right? It isn't just Google Slides. I hope you didn't miss the addition of the live teacher annotation. Down here at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and click on the pencil icon. And now, as I'm talking to my students and I'm at my device, I can also highlight that content, those things from my presentation, from my slides that I want students to take notes on, or that I want them to notice. Or maybe it's maybe you realize you forgot to add something. Well, good thing you can quickly type it on, or you can quickly add it on with the live teacher annotation. So as I'm doing this, you'll notice on your Nearpod student screen that it is, now it's supposed to be an arrow, that is coming up in real time. Okay. And once you close your annotation, you can always return to it if needed. Next, another little throwback from the 2021 calendar year is the live teacher whiteboard. I, by default, always think of math class for whatever reason, but it can be for any subject area. Instead of clicking on the pencil at the bottom, for this, you can click on the word and the button whiteboard up at the top. And now you're delivering that direct instruction and you suddenly want to demonstrate something. If you or anything like I've been in the past, run to the front of the room, throw up the projector screen so that I could write on my whiteboard. We don't need to do that anymore. We can click on whiteboard, and now we have a digital whiteboard to demonstrate for students. Again, it's in real time, so I can demonstrate my thinking, whether that's a think aloud, answering a student question, demonstrating the steps in a process. I have a whiteboard. Another thing we can do to increase engagement and help us when we are in that I do stage of instruction is we can use quick launch and on the fly activities. Again, not our newest updates, but there have been some changes. As a teacher, if you are delivering a lesson and you're not using Nearpod, which is okay, we don't have to use Nearpod for the entire lesson. You'll notice that at nearpod.com, you have your account icon in the top right corner, and we can click on quick launch. So as a reminder, this is a way to launch an open-ended question, a collaborate board, or even a timer without needing a full Nearpod lesson. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you decided to have students work on some poster paper in class. You passed out those markers and then realized 90% of your markers are dead. I don't know where I got that idea from, but you can go ahead and click on quick launch, launch a collaborate board, have students then collaborating as a means to, say, check for understanding during your explicit instruction. The other option is within the lesson, you used to be able to do this in the top right corner. It is now moved over to the left where we see menu. You now have the option to add an activity on the fly. So here, as I'm delivering instruction, I have my content slides. Either I forgot a slide and I want to add it in, or I want to type in some clarification. Maybe I want to quickly link students to a website or check for understanding because the room is seeming a little, maybe a little confused. I'm getting a lot of blank stares back. I can throw in a quick check for understanding on the spot for students without needing to exit live presentation mode. So again, that is now housed under menu. And I'm just going to keep throwing ideas at you. So remember, we do have this recorded and you will have access. I can make the Nearpod student paste if we want to join it on our own time. Next stage, after I do, we know that we have we do. And this is that stage where we are in the mix with our students, right? We're working through problems with them. We're getting their input. So here's how we can leverage Nearpod. First idea is we have interactive videos. We have had these for a while, but a lot of people don't seem to realize our interactive videos work just like they do with Edpuzzle. Meaning you can grab a video from Nearpod, or you can upload your own video, or you can even choose a Nearpod original video from the library, insert a variety of question types. The video will pause and students will need to answer the question. So one way we can use this for the we do stage is by projecting that video instead of on student devices at the front of the screen, at the front of the class on the screen. That's what else I was going to say. So here again, you'll notice on your student Nearpod screen, it says eyes up front. And that's because as the teacher, I'm going to choose to play the video at the front of the classroom. And I hope this isn't as loud for you as it is for me. So here, oh, I did notice it defaulted to teacher view, but I can make sure I have student view on, and then at the front of the room, the question is down at the bottom. I can have students answer on their screens, or we can do it as a whole class. And I can simply say, all right, class, how much do you already know about finding the perimeter of a shape? Fist to 5, or 1, 3 for a lot, 1 for not much. In that way, I am participating with them, answering questions, identifying common misconceptions, etc. It's a cute little video on perimeter.
Jenna, we do have one question right now from Shasta.
Yes.
And she loves this feature, but she says sometimes it gets stuck with the students and they have to exit the Nearpod and then restart it. Is that an issue that Nearpod's aware of?
So that is not an issue that I've heard of commonly. Usually that would be caused by a browser needing to be updated. It might be a little more prevalent on iOS using an iPad. But if that is the case, please do reach out to support@nearpod.com, and they can kind of identify what's causing that for you. Okay. Yes, great to know. Don't give up. We can help you find a solution. Next idea for that we do is live to student paced mode. This is one of our newer features, but down here at the bottom right corner, you can see where it says student paced off. So again, you're working with students. You're going to have some parts in this. The students are going to have some parts in this. One way to facilitate that we do stage is I can go down here to student paced off. And I can choose to have a portion of my lesson be student paced. So previously with Nearpod, you could either do a live lesson or a student paced lesson, but now you can do live and say, you know what, let's pause here. I would like you students to go through the next 4 activities on your own, and then we will reconvene and go over the answers together. So you can simply say, I would like to be student paced, slide 17 through slide 19, turn on. And then as the teacher, I can navigate and see student progress. I can then turn student paced off to bring everybody back to the slide I am on as the teacher. So I'm not going to demonstrate because I am running out of time here. I wanted to throw in as much good stuff as possible. Another great opportunity for the We Do stage, and I did kind of talk about this already, is, oh, do we have a question? Nope. Is the student view for drag and drop, or for any of the activity types that have student view enabled. Again, you will see that up here at the top. One way that we can do We Do is, instead of having students complete this drag and drop, for example, on their devices, I have it at the front of the room as the teacher, and I'm going to call on some students, let's see here. So I can say, okay, one of the first things we have is evaporation. Can anybody explain to me what evaporation means? Call in a student explains it correctly. And as the teacher in front of the class, I can move that over to demonstrate. And then maybe I say, okay, after evaporation, student so-and-so, what comes next? And in that way, we're having that back and forth. The teacher is still involved because we're in that We Do phase, and I'm modeling at the front of the room as a student. It's also a great way to model expectations for an activity before having students do it on their own. And there's also live view of responses. So can I have a guinea pig? Don't worry, you don't have to actually know the water cycle, although I'm sure more of you do know more about it than I do. But can I have a guinea pig? Oh, Deanna, I see you talking, but you're on
I
mute.
said I'll do it. I'll say I'll do it.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so here you can see on my screen, I have the teacher view pulled up, and I would like you to go ahead and get ready to start doing the drag and drop.
Okay.
So notice that she is in progress. I'm going to click on this and share with the class. Now I'd like you to continue, and can you explain your thinking as you're filling in the different stages of the water cycle? Just make something up, it's okay.
Just make something up. Okay.
Just make something up.
The evaporation is, you can see the ground, the water here is being heated by the sun, and that's beginning to evaporate up into the clouds, and then
Perfect.
groundwater.
I'm going to go ahead and stop you there.
Runoff's right here. Yep, we got it.
Yeah, and so what we can see here is we have a student. We have shared their drag and drop. You can also do this with draw it. We've shared their screen with their classmates, and we are having that student do a think aloud. So they can model their thinking for the class. Again, this is in person. Students are watching it as they're listening to their peer. So thank you for being my guinea pig. So again, a great way to do that if you're
Can I ask you a question really quick?
Absolutely.
What did you push to get it into that live view responses?
Perfect. So by default, I can see in progress and submitted. We actually don't have anyone in progress right now, and that's okay. But you'll notice if it's submitted, we see the green. If it's in progress, the student name will be in yellow. And then for students who haven't started yet, it will be that black bar. So to share either a submitted student answer or an in progress student answer, I click on it, and then I click on the blue, in this case, share with class.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It will keep it anonymous. So sometimes it could be fun to put one up and be like, oh, this person is on the right track. I can tell, look, they have evaporation here. And you know that your students can be like, that's mine, that's mine. So great opportunity to allow them to celebrate themselves. It also works really well for math. You'll have students demonstrate and think aloud how they're graphing, solving an equation, etc. And another thing that can help with We Do is the updates to time to climb. So I was going to have us do a time to climb, but in the interest of time, we're not going to. I'm just going to tell you. So some of the updates to time to climb now is when you have students participating in this game. It's a lot like Kahoot, if you're familiar with that. Students will now, or excuse me, teachers will now see a chart that will show how students are doing on each question. So you'll be able to very quickly see if there's a common misconception or if student answers seem to be all over the place. That's a moment for reteaching. But perhaps the best update to time to climb now is you can pause time to climb in between questions. So this is great for that We Do stage because you have a time to climb, students are excited, they answer it, and oh my gosh, as the teacher, you see most of them got it wrong. Pause the game, review the answer, resume the game. So that is a great new update. We can always go back and play if we have time after questions. Lastly, for this, we're actually going to stop with the You All Do stage, which I don't think is technically on the books for gradual release of responsibility, but I hear it talked about everywhere. And this is that collaboration stage of the lesson, right? Where you've done it as a class with the students, supporting them. And now as an extra scaffold, you want your students to work maybe in partners or small groups before being turned to independent practice. So one way we can use the Collaborate board is to either front load or extend our discussions in the class. Because again, just because we're using a Nearpod, we don't need our students to have their noses in their devices the whole time. We can throw in-person strategies like actually having two humans talk face to face. So one idea is to have the Collaborate board, have students contribute to, answer a prompt on a Collaborate board, and then have them turn to their partners and discuss their answers. So you're giving them a chance to think before being put on the spot to share. Or another thing we can do is we can have partners talk in person or a small group talk in person, and then students individually turn to the Collaborate board and provide their answer. This can be a great way too for those students who are really shy about contributing to in-class discussions. They will at least have the option to demonstrate their thinking for you on the Collaborate board. But another way to use Nearpod to support that in-person collaboration. We can also use Nearpod to support strategies like think, pair, share. Here I have a just a little directive and a prompt. Please don't actually do this. This is going back to my middle school English days as a teacher. In your student notes, take a minute to brainstorm an answer and supporting textual evidence for the following prompt. So right there's the think, right? I'm having them put down their ideas in the student notes. Again, you can see that little pencil in the top right corner. And the prompt is, in The Masque of the Red Death, Poe describes Prince Prospero as dauntless and sagacious. Do you agree or disagree? Why? So you give them time to think. Then you have them turn to their partners in person because we don't want them in their devices the whole time. And then we have a draw it. So here's our student view. What the students can do now is they can discuss as partners, and then to make that conversation visible to you as a teacher, you can then have them type in their answers or summarize their discussion on a draw it. I also have this, this is more of a structured classroom discussion, just a mini one in the sense that I have given a role, partner A, answer first. I think that Prince Prospero is dauntless / sagacious because. Partner B, you are either going to agree or disagree and provide additional evidence. So once they talk, partner A can then go in, type their answer, the most popular one. And they say, oh, I'm going to say Prince Prospero is dauntless and is not sagacious because, and they can provide their answer. So again, that's a way just for the teacher to check in, make sure that students are having a discussion, are able to summarize what they talked about. And it also kind of bridges that gap between the academic conversation and then maybe a writing task. And again, as a teacher, I can see it in progress. So I can very quickly tell which partners or which small groups I need to go up to and get them back on task because I'm not seeing anything happen on the draw it. All right, before we turn to questions, luckily I linked this for you all because I had a feeling I was going to run out of time. If you go to bit.ly, that's ly, /nearpod-in-person, and maybe we could put that in the chat there, that will link you to some useful resources. There is one called Ideas for Using Nearpod in the Physical Classroom. There is a resource that will help you use Nearpod for station rotations, centers, or even as a choice board. And then lastly, using Nearpod in the physical classroom, just a quick guide. It'll remind you how you can move through the phases of instruction and supporting your instruction with Nearpod. And so I'll just show you this really quickly. Here's the one with the ideas. It's everything from using Nearpod for reviewing classroom routines and procedures, post-spring break maybe, how to use Nearpod videos for building background knowledge, etc. So last little plug before I take questions. For those of us who are diehard Nearpod fans or just looking to get our feet wet, UEN has launched a Utah Nearpod community. This is a user group where we're encouraging Utah teachers to sign up. You'll be on a listserv where you can you'll receive emails with tips, tricks, resources, information about virtual meetups, but it is just designed for Utah Nearpod users to discuss and collaborate on how to use Nearpod to teach in Utah. So I definitely just saw someone's Bitmoji with their hand raised, and like my teacher instinct kicked in, and I was going to call on that person who had their hand raised. So I don't know if that's ever going to go away.
That was so good. That's so good. That was great.
It was like, oh no. It's a Bitmoji. Do we have any questions I can answer?
Any questions? I don't see any in the chat. Ashley, what about your drag and drop question? Did I answer that for you?
Yes, I think so. I'm a hands-on, so I think I just need to open it up and play with it for a minute.
Yeah, Jenna, her question was, do you find the drag and drop option to make a slide where you normally create slides? And I told her, no, it's an actual new activity option that she goes down and finds. So yeah, you go in and add it in there. It's fun.
Yeah. And so what it is with the drag and drop activity, just like the draw it, your background is going to be an image. And so what I actually did is I created my drag and drop activity in Google Slides. Let's see here. I'm going to try and find it for you. There we go. So I created my background without these 3 images in Google Slides, and then did download as PNG. And then I had that image to just upload as the background of my drag and drop activity. There's also, if you're looking to add, and just a reminder too, when we go to create, we don't need to create full lessons anymore. We can create just an interactive video or launch one. We can launch just an activity like drag and drop. And the neat thing is, especially with drag and drop, we have just added over 500 new pre-made drag and drop lessons. So when I open the drag and drop activity, whether I'm in Google Slides using the Nearpod add-on, or I'm here in Nearpod, you'll see the drag and drop library. And what I can do is, let's say I'm science. And here I can see grades 3 through 5. Oh, there's an ecosystems drag and drop. I click on it. And there it is. It's already made for me. I can launch it for students. It's great. So there's a lot of great content there.
Yeah, there's so many pre-made activities that teachers aren't aware of in Nearpod. Drag and drops, draw it's, time declines. That it's just amazing to go explore.
Yeah.
Okay, I got too excited. Sorry, I must be slow. Where did you go to find the pre-made drag and drops?
So there's a couple of things here that you can do. No, this is a great question because it's fun.
I love Nearpod, but it's thrown me off with all the changes. So I'm excited to see all this.
I know we, teachers had so much feedback after going remote that we're like, we're going to do it all. And we did. So you have several options. You can go down to the Nearpod library and sort, and you can filter, by video or by activity. My favorite thing to do is if I want to add the drag and drop to a lesson, first thing I'll do is start a new lesson. If I just want to launch it as an activity, I'll just go to activity, but I'll show you within an actual lesson. So as usual for any activity, we add content and activities. We go to the activities tab up at the top, and you can choose, I can never find it. Oh, there it is. You can choose drag and drop. It was lovely.
Of course.
It's after the school day, Nearpods. It went home. There we go.
No,
and what you'll notice is by default over here on the right, this drag and drop library is expanded. And so you can just search right there. You don't need to go find those anywhere else. If it's in your way, just collapse it.
Perfect. That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is after hours. My brain is moving way slower.
No problem.
Well, and I mean, it's April, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and Bonnie had a question because she wanted to know if Nearpod integrated with Canva, not Canvas, but Canva.
So Nearpod does not integrate with Canva, unfortunately. The best solution I have for that would be to download your Canva presentation. And then you could upload it to You could upload it to Nearpod. I was going to say you could also upload it, put it in a Google Slides presentation and then turn it into Nearpod. That might be an extra step for you. But yeah, you can absolutely, just like the good old days before the Google Slides add-on, we can create lesson. And if I remember correctly, it's been a while because I like the Google Slides add-on. Yeah, here we go. You can just drag
and drop
that downloaded Canva presentation there. So if you want those aesthetics. Unfortunately, if you use some of the fun animations in Canva, those won't come through because it'll be a static slide, but you can still get that aesthetic.
Right. I'm gonna have to try that.
And I mean, we've got a lot of original users here, but I do want to point out before we go, if you haven't yet, and you are a Google Slides user and you are not a fan of the Nearpod slide editor, please make sure you get the Nearpod add-on for Google Slides. What happens when we open this add-on is we can create our slides here. I should have just opened the one I was working on. So I can show you. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is wind again out where I live. So I hope the weather is nice for you. So here, I wouldn't try and create a slide that looks like this in the Nearpod slide editor. It's gotten a lot better, but it's not as good as Google Slides. So I have this. I open the Nearpod add-on because I've already added it. And then now, right from Google Slides, I can, it's going to tell me this because I have it launched. That's why I got that error message. But then right from Google Slides, I can add in my activities. So you'll see in Google Slides, I added my Nearpod poll. I can take a slide and click down here in the bottom left corner, convert to draw it. And then when I'm ready, I can simply save and go to Nearpod. It will direct me to Nearpod where I launch my lesson. So great way to create in Google Slides, but still have all the Nearpod features and interactive activities.
Oh, that's awesome. I love using that too.
It's easier to make a pretty slide in Google Slides.
Right. Anyone else have any other questions for Jenna?
So do we have time that we can take a look at the new features and time to climb?
Oh, yeah.
I am happy.
We're fine. We're fine. I've got it
happy to show you.
Go ahead.
If you need to jump off, that's fine. Thank you for reminding me. My husband took the kids to soccer practice, so I have time. All right.
Well, and also another thing on the collaboration board that Jenna said too is that they've taken some of the backgrounds from Time to Climb, and they've actually made them to be able to use those as backgrounds for your collaboration boards too. So that's been fun to look at.
Yes. So I wanted to point out, because we seem to have some big fans of ed tech. If you have traditionally used Padlet, just a reminder that you can now sort. You have columns and grids. Students can respond to each other's posts. We have more backgrounds. The idea is that, in the state of Utah, we have free access to Nearpod. So we tried to incorporate as many of those loved features of Padlet into our Collaborate board. So hopefully we can save you some money if you've been purchasing Padlet. I don't know, I feel like I'm not supposed to say things like that. like Padlet's a dirty word. All
Can
right.
I just say that the teacher view and student view is so amazing, because I used to have to pull up like a separate page to have it in student view so I could teach them how to actually draw and what to click on.
Yes.
Like that alone is a game changer.
Perfect. Well, and the fact that it loads automatically. They did make that update a little while ago, and then you would just sit there and wait. And you're like, okay, everyone just hang on. And by then you lose the class, right? You give them 5 seconds and they're gone. So new Time to Climb features here. As the teacher, not all of these options are available when you launch a Time to Climb in student paced mode, but in live mode, you have lots of fun options now for Time to Climb. I'm going to choose underwater. You can choose to randomize answers. And you can choose, you must toggle it on or off, but you can choose to pause the game between questions. I would just throw that on because you never know when you're going to wish you could pause it. And then, this is my favorite, play sound on all student devices. No thanks. We can turn that off, but I'll do it for you guys. All right. Okay, go ahead and pick your character if you're joining us for this time to climb. And so I do want to point out in this case, you can see the student names. So down at the bottom, we have that hide and show student names option. I've clicked it to hide student names, and now you will just see these little asterisks in case I'm projecting as a teacher. Okay, what is the second stage of the gradual release of responsibility model? If you answer quickly and look at my teacher screen, I have a leaderboard, but I have names disabled. And I can see here that everyone in the class got it right, or at least everyone in the game. So let's go ahead and move to the next question. And if someone will intentionally get this wrong, we'll have something to show you. Okay, which of the following Nearpod features can support I do? Choose all that apply. I'm going to let the timer run out intentionally. Okay, so you'll notice the timer went down to 0, but now I have the chance to, it says time to climb paused. Now I have the chance to go over those answers. So I can see, okay, well, a lot of the students got only 1 out of 3. So let's take a moment to revisit this before we move on. My mouse keeps randomly dying. And last question just gives you the same idea. You're welcome to answer if you'd like, but if you have any time to climb questions, I'd be happy to answer those. I keep wanting to call on the Bitmoji. Just out of the corner of my eye, I see that raised hand, although I know it's a hi. And don't forget, I'm not going to click on it because I'm not trying to call anybody out, but don't forget down here at the bottom left, you can see when a student has left the tab that they were using to view Nearpod, or if you're using a mobile device, they have left the app to go somewhere else. It will turn red to let you know a student is somewhere else on their device. Okay, I'm going to get out of this so I stop listening to the music. Any other questions?
There are not any in the chat. Anyone else who's here have a question? Jenna, we really want to thank you for this. This was awesome.
Of course.
I've seen in the chat, people have said they're wonderful. They can't wait to go back and revisit it and watch the videos again. So thank you.
Yeah, and so hopefully no matter what stage you're at with Nearpod, you found something that you didn't know before. I do want to remind you that if you come across a feature that you wish you had, if you go to feedback.nearpod.com, you can submit your ideas there to get those on Nearpod's radar. You can have people upvote them if you've ever done like the Canvas community, but we don't need like 3.6 billion upvotes for it to get on our radar like Canvas does. Don't tell them I said that. Just remember being like, all right, we need the whole district to upvote this.
Okay. Thanks so much, Jenna.
Absolutely.
And this was a great one. And stay tuned for next week. I do believe we have another webinar coming up, and we will have a representative from Apple to talk about some of the other Apple tools that we have. So, okay. So
Okay.
I'm going to